Dad, before you answer that question, let's do a very quick intro, if you guys don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah. Start with Zoran. Everybody knows Sandy.
Yeah. I'm Zoran. I'm the resident Canadian, so I get to make fun of all the Americans for all the stereotypes we have about you. But
that's not very nice.
While we eat a poutine and speak en français and enjoy our healthcare and all that. But really, I'm the design. I came to Petersen Games by pitching them the game Potions and Profits, which is the strange, blind bidding, imperfect information, odd game that I got them. And from that, Arthur came to me and said, "Oh, there's actually other games I've been designing that I need like a co-designer on." Petersen Games puts out so many things at once; they can only design so many games, and that's where Married the Monster came from, which had a less good name when we first launched it, one that I thought of, but we can get into that after when we go into the naming questions and whatnot.
I'm Tony Mastrangeli. I'm part of a co-design team with Jeff Petersen, who could not appear today. We came to Petersen Games with our first game, Startropolis, 3-some years ago, and someday we will get a working version.
Yes. Well, it now works, so we just need to get it made.
We're close on that.
Yes.
And then our second game was Unlocking and Sandy, the roll and write. And then for this Kickstarter, the Monster Invasion, we did Evacuate.
And they have another they're working on.
Yes.
That we potentially might publish. And yeah, Jeff Petersen, no relation to we Petersens. You guys basically know me, and I don't design games. I do other things at Petersen Games, which is why I had to
design games as Lincoln does.
Yeah, well, that's why I had to have Zoran help me. Zoran did all the fine tuning, polishing, a lot of basically the development part, right? I came to him with kind of a basic idea. I mean, it was kind of Marry the Monster was kind of a working game, but not working well.
I can tell you why it didn't work, because when you first showed me Marry the Monster, it didn't have a win condition, so I had to think of one. So, you can say it was a little
for babies.
Well, it wasn't.
See what it was going.
Well, I never said. I never said this is a complete game, because if I did, then why would you have needed to be a helper?
Man. Imagine Tom Vessel's review on that one. It's been 75 hours. I'm still playing this game.
I remember the first time. So Zoran actually worked with me to make what I think to be a far superior game even than Marry the Monster, 7 Vampires, which will come out later. Our sales manager.
Talk about that.
Yeah, but Zoran, by the way, our sales manager just cannot wait. Every couple weeks, he asks me when we're going to start the art and publish it, because he played it and he loves that game. So he thinks it'll be a really strong seller. Okay, so that's us. We're Savan and Michael. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Yes, sir.
Well, my name is Savan. I use they, them pronouns. I've been gaming since I was 6, and I've always kind of been interested in game design. Mostly because a lot of the games that are out there that are popular, I think have good ideas, but I don't really. There's something about them that I don't like. So I mostly make my own role-playing games, although I play board games all the time. I specifically chose this spot because it's right where all my Petersen games are. So I can show them all.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
And
do you make your own RPG systems or just adventures?
I do. I actually just play tested with my normal weekly role-playing group, a system I made where you play politicians and all the actions are resolved by everyone voting on whether or not it succeeds. It was the most.
That's amazing.
Yeah, kind of. Thing. It was the most successful prototype or most successful playtest I've ever had, because everyone who played it was like, this is it needs some work. Obviously, it was super. This is the first time I've ever shown it to anybody, but everyone was like, "This is there's an idea here. You can really make it work." And I took a lot of feedback from them, And the best thing I've gotten, the best response I've gotten from other things I've showed them is, I get it. So yeah, I'm very interested to hear about, all this game design stuff.
And the politician thing sounds great because you can also make it for any setting you want. You can make it contemporary, fantasy, cyberpunk. So
I went into that with that specific idea in mind. The setting we played with was a futuristic sci-fi setting, and the story that what was going on was that in the Andromeda Galaxy, humans were migrating to them, and everyone was playing politicians. They didn't know what was happening at first, but they eventually had to build up, so they had to make a deal with the humans and find a planet for them to live on. And since they had destroyed Earth with like climate change and stuff, they had to prove that they could take care of this planet before they let them go to other planets. It was interesting. I just had a base concept and let them figure out how to resolve it, and it was really fun.
That sounds good. I can dig it, man.
Yeah. If Star Wars has taught me anything, people really want galactic politics.
MG.
Well, hello, guys. My name is Michael. I am a super consumer of games, I guess you'd say. My background is not like anything what you guys do. My background's in corrections. And now I work in hospital security and private investigations, and I got my irons in a lot of fires. And,
so you're a PI?
Mostly I like
crimes while we're recording. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. So
are
the
you
whole
a
concept
PI?
of gaming, game theory, and design fascinates me. I'm sorry, Arthur, go ahead.
Oh, I was just asking, are you a PI?
Yes, I am. I've been doing that since 2004.
Cool. Very cool.
Do you have a fedora?
So, yeah.
We need a PI.
Do you have a
I
fedora?
do. Yes, I do.
Nice. I'm pretty sure that's a requirement for the test, right?
Right.
There's a Dame
Yes,
walk in.
you have to have one. They
That's right.
They actually give you a raincoat and a fedora when you pass your test.
Right. Of course.
I was gonna say, should I go pull my trench coat out of my closet?
Okay.
That's cool.
So, back when I first started gaming, I've been gaming since I've been in grade school that I can remember. I'm 52 now. And I started a small game store to kind of make my hobby support itself. It's nothing big. It's just like a traveling pop-up store. And the whole concept of game design and theory, game theory just fascinates me. I've done anything in it, don't know anything about it, but developing a set of rules that people willingly take on to achieve a certain objective while being constrained by those rules is just one of the most fascinating things I can think of. So here I am. I want to, I want to hear what that process is. And I have some questions, but mostly I just want to hear. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So as a PI, out of all the board games you played, which one best represents that profession? Like Scotland Yard or Sherlock Holmes Private Investigator?
Fury of Dracula.
Detective City of Angels?
That's the one.
Sherlock Holmes?
The Sherlock Holmes one I've played a lot because that's the one where you actually have to read newspaper clippings and things like that. The one I want to try is called Detective, which has I think it's called Detective,
crime?
And I beg your pardon. Where you have to go online and you have to look at things and research. Yeah. That one I want to really try.
That's fun. I like that one.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got.
we got a diverse group here. That's very cool. So maybe we can dive right into the because you guys sent some questions. Savon sent a bunch.
As I attempted earlier.
Yes.
If you had no limits on time, money, or resources, what would be your perfect dream game you'd design? So, with no limits, I really like my hyperspace universe that I created for the board game. And what I would like to do is finish my posited hyperspace role-playing game with an included spaceship battle system, which I have also managed to design. Haven't finished the hyperspace, which is ship-to-ship combat, which would be the main way you'd fight. And I would probably like to put in some kind of background thing where you play a tabletop game of hyperspace, the board game first, then that would be the background for the universe that the next adventure would take place in.
So, have you ever heard of a game called Talon? Or Space Empires, I think 20XX's? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4X. Because they do a sort of, it's not a role-playing game, it's a board game. They're both board games, but they do a similar thing where you can, Talon is like a ship-on-ship combat, and Space Empires is like a big 4X game. and you can combine them, which is basically every time you have a fight in Space Empires, you do a game of Talon. So the game takes like 4 days to finish.
It's it's a kind of like not Talisman. It's like Titan, but expanded, right? You have the board, and then you have the battle map, which are each like a little 2-player contest.
The game, the Star Trek role-playing game did the same thing.
Yes.
It's not unique to me, but that's the game.
So your ultimate game would be a combination role-playing board game, tactical game of hyperspace.
Yeah, I could probably be talked out of the board game part, but the tactical and role-playing game would be cool.
Hey, you're working on your perfect game then.
Everyone is saying his game is his perfect game.
Yeah, he always says his favorite game is the one he's currently designing. So that was an easy question. What's the next one in the list?
I'm not going to answer all the questions. Come on, you guys have to.
Oh, that's true. I was just like, well, Sandy will do all the heavy lifting.
Okay, so what is a theme or game mechanic you think should be in more games and one you think shouldn't be used at all? I have no answer for the first part of that question, but the mechanic I think shouldn't be used is gambling for money, which is kind of moralistic, but there you are. You guys, Tony and Zoran and Arthur, can answer mechanic you think should be used in more games.
One that I've noticed is a lot of games, they don't really take into account that there is people playing the games. And a lot of the time that when they design it, they take mechanics into account. And so there is not a lot of scenarios where there is no mechanical benefit to doing something, but people would like to do it. Like if you play a role-playing game, people will be like, oh, I'm not going to rob this person because my character is morally good. But in a board game, like even if there is some light role-playing, there are usually things like either, if you're playing a really post-apocalyptic alpha game, you can kill this person and eat them and you gain food credits or whatever. Or you can choose not to do that and nothing happens. There aren't many games where like absolutely nothing happens, but how the player feels about doing it. And I feel like that they don't take into account that people do sometimes like to be like, oh, I'm going to play this game, but I'm never going to use this mechanic just to say I never did it and I won from not doing it. Like those self-imposed challenges or like emotional challenges or things that you feel when you're playing rather than things that functionally happen in the game. I feel like that does not come up enough in board games. It only comes up in tabletop games, and even some of them become, the role-playing games, ROLL, instead of role-playing games, ROLE. I feel like people need to think of that more when they're designing board games, that sometimes self-imposed challenges can be very fun.
It seems really hard to implement that into a board game, though. Like, how would you...
It is, but the simplest way would be that you can make a decision that has no mechanical benefit other than emotionally feeling good that you didn't do something bad. Like don't rob this person and you gain nothing. But you didn't rob a person.
Knowing the board game world, though, people would only do that if that ultimately helps them achieve victory in the game.
I mean, this maybe is crossing over the line of what you wanted, but maybe some sort of like moral mechanic or moral victory idea.
Yeah, if
in board games. It's not being moral, you're just following the thing that gives you the most points in a board game.
Yeah, that's always what ends up happening, and I feel like there are people who would enjoy playing something that does not gain them points, but if they can still achieve victory without that, even if it's like a handicap, people do enjoy that if they win with like through style points and whatnot. Even when I do things like when I play like Magic the Gathering, if I know I have the game in the bag, I have done things like I'm going to, even though you're at 1 life point left, I know you're 3 turns away from milling yourself out, so I'm just going to do nothing and watch you bleed out, which is mechanically worse because I'm going to give 3 more turns to, make a comeback, but you get the style points. And I feel like not enough games allow for the style points or the moral victories or, those kind of feel-good winning with ways that aren't directly mechanically advantageous.
Yeah, I get that.
It's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason people don't use it because it's weird, and at that point, just play tabletop RPG.
Yeah. It reminds me. I mean, it's not exactly the same. It reminds me a little bit of like the game, the fairy tale game where you have, I can't remember what it's called, where you have all the cards, and you just have to. You're collectively telling a story with the card, and all you have to do is use the cards you have and play it. And when you've played out,
I believe it's called Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time. Yeah. Actually, years ago, I wanted to do. So Dad, I don't think I ever pitched this to you. This was years ago. I was at Gamma brainstorming with Ian, of all people, like a simple, light, cheap game we could do. And the idea we came up with was exactly Once Upon a Time, only a Cthulhu Mythos adventure. So we were investigators, and we had cards that represented various things in the mythos, and we had to collectively tell the story of our investigation into the mythos by playing cards. It was just a rip-off of Once Upon a Time. And then we thought about it, and then what stopped us was, at the time, we had no in-house. That was a point in time when Petersen Games had no in-house artists. And our art director at the time, who shall remain nameless, wasn't the fastest gun in the West, let's say, at organizing artwork to have it be done. It was not
5 weeks to spend a half hour with me to figure out the 9 to 11 player map.
Yes, well, we don't need to cast a
5 weeks.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we ultimately were like, well, it's a simple, cheap game to make. We could easily do it, except it would require a mountain of art from our perspective, because it would require a deck of cards. And most of the games we'd done at that point were like Cthulhu Wars, which actually doesn't have that much art if you think about it. Outside of the miniatures, Cthulhu Wars is pretty illustration light, right? And again, and so basically, we abandoned the idea, but you made me think of it, Zoran. I gotta write myself a note, because that idea, I think, has some merit. Now we could do it, and now anyone watching this video, since it's being recorded, is going to steal the idea and publish it before us. Dang it!
Well, there is a game called Cthulhu's Vault, which was basically a Cthulhu storytelling game.
Oh, well, if it already exists, then I guess we don't need to do it. So
it was a house-running game idea, so you're still good.
I was going to say, that idea kind of reminded me of, I mean, to call us an idea is really stretching it, but like a concept that I've always wanted to put in a role-playing game somehow, and that's a mechanical conspiracy board. So, like in like TV shows and stuff, they show someone's a conspiracy theorist. They always have like the cork board with the pictures and the string and the tacks connecting everything. I've never made it work, but I've always wanted to do like something like that in a game. Like you make your own cork board as you play the game.
I'm assuming Michael, as a PI, has that in his other room, right? As he's investigating, right. He has the cork board, and he has.
I can tell you, on certain cases, without taking a weird off ramp, we have used a whiteboard in a similar way, where we've had circles and diamonds connecting different things that we've been working on. So yes,
wow. In
a manner of speaking, in real life, that actually does happen.
So movies and TV shows with that, it's actually somewhat real. Like they
have a cool crazy board that has like all these strings connected to people's photographs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it.
I actually
sorry. Okay, so what's a criticism you give yourself about your work? Well, I am usually willing to let other people criticize my work, but I would say that that I was of the belief when I started Petersen Games that I was a great rules writer, and I have since been told repeatedly that I am not.
And let me clarify something. He doesn't mean a rules writer as in creating the rules for the game. He means codifying them into a rule book.
That is hard. Oh, I know. That.
Mm-hmm. Because the challenge with that is that you know the rules in your head, and so you're trying to write them down to someone who knows nothing of the rules, and you're kind of making assumptions in the codification of the rules, and that leads.
I know the argument against me. Yeah. I'm just saying that I had not believed that before I started Petersen Games. So
he says that because
told by people who seem to care that I am wrong. So.
It's because we want people to enjoy our games, and they need to have clearly written rules. Sometimes,
okay, we're here to say criticisms about our work, not about specifically my work. So that was the thing I thought was bad. So I started the ball rolling.
Well, read
games, guys.
Wait, read the question again.
What is a criticism you give yourself about your work?
Okay.
Zoran. I can say that. Sure, I can go. I'm really good at coming up with ideas and starting to hash out rules, but then when it comes to actually come to cutting up cards and making prototypes for playtesting, I kind of stop my passion a little bit because playtesting's hard and tedious and awful, but it has to be done. So me and Jeff combined have an entire Google Drive full of like partially written up, half-finished games that probably could go somewhere, but we just don't always get them to the table into the playtesting phase, which is the most important.
I know for whenever I make games, I end up thinking of like what's the end goal. Like the person, it's a game where you want to become a millionaire, so everyone wants to get money. And the big problem I have is a really common problem in game design, which is instead of thinking, how can I make it so the players can actively achieve their goal, I think of every possible obstacle I can put in front of them. So it's the famous, actually, if you guys played Potions and Profits, I don't know if that's out to everyone yet, but like initially it's a game where you're trying to become a monopoly and get a lot of money, but you can go bankrupt in between and have to get bailouts and try again. And when I first made the game, I didn't actually think it was people go bankrupt all the time. But then the playtest said it was some people, and they're like, this theme doesn't work. You have to be like, you're all struggling businesses, that everything's trying to kill you, and that like you're never going to make it. I'm like, oh, that was not my intent, but probably ease up in the game a little. And the example that's given that's shamelessly for this, it's you always want to make things to make a player feel good. You want to give them rewards instead of punishments. The most famous example is from World of Warcraft, which is their rest XP system. Because initially what happened is to avoid people playing for too long, they would give them a punishment saying, you played for 3 hours straight, you now get half XP for everything you did. And everyone hated it. So the way they fixed it is they just said, okay, instead of for 3 hours you get a detriment, for the first 3 hours you play, you actually get double experience, which was actually the regular experience which they ended up having. They just called it double. And the other example I know is from Knights of the Gathering again, because I play that game a ton, is they had a set called Unsanctioned, Unglued, Unstable, where you rolled a d6, and if you rolled like 3 to 6, you get a bonus, 1 or 2, you get a detriment. And the designer, Rosewater, he realized that, oh, the 1 and 2 don't have to be a detriment. Just not getting the bonus is punishment enough. So you don't have to design drawbacks, just not getting a boon is enough of a drawback, but that's all you got to include. Don't make your players feel worse. And I constantly make my players feel bad. Yeah. So I got to stop doing it.
In my game Hyperspace, there's a civilization called the Zepsig who have an ability called Persuasion, and the idea behind it was it's supposed to suppress combat in an area. And the way it works, it doesn't prevent combat. It just says you don't get the normal combat rewards if you fight here. So no one ever goes there to fight. And it works as designed, but you could if you really wanted to. Just,
I can't wait for that game.
I know. Everybody can't wait for. I can't wait for it. Yeah, it's really funny how our backers think that we're withholding it. Sometimes, some of them. It's like, no, we want it out. We want it out.
I am absolutely not on that side.
We want it to be released.
Absolutely not on this side. I'm so patient.
We have no reason for it not to be released. We desperately want it released.
We're only benefited by having it be available.
I know.
Although, with shipping costs right now, we're probably better off waiting a little.
I know. It's crazy.
No, we're not.
Tony, you're going to admit that out loud?
Yeah. No,
I have control over everything.
There's nothing to do with anything. All right, so what's the next question?
Why aren't Amelia and Aurora helping in this discussion?
I don't remember that email.
My daughters helped me. So I feel a little bit out of place here because I have had technically one game published, the Tooth Fairy game, and then Marry the Monster about to be published, sold at least. But I'm not really a game designer per se.
You actually answering the question?
No. Yes, I'm answering the question. But I want to say that what started me to do any games was my daughters, which is what Sandy just mentioned, his granddaughters. Because I made up Tooth Fairy game. At the time, it wasn't Tooth Fairy game. It was just little cubes. I made it up for them to play in the living room, and they liked it so much. I was like, oh, I have something here. So that's what started it.
Okay, so my other question that I have after that one is, do you have a strategy or method for naming your creations? What I like for naming my games, and I don't always get to do it because I own a game company, so a lot of things are done by committee, which is all the effectiveness of that. is I like names that are short, punchy, and intriguing. And by intriguing, I mean it sounds like something interesting, but it also is not lying about what the game is about. So, for example, Cthulhu Wars is what it's about. Planet Apocalypse is what it's about. The Gods War is what it's about.
Hyperspace.
That says that right on the tin.
Not really about hyperspace, I will admit, but it sounds spacey.
Well, it is about hyperspace. You travel through hyperspace.
You do, but there's not a lot of. But it's just like the move action, it's not.
I guess.
I can't tell you guys, if you create a game and take it to a publisher and sell it to them to publish, there's a non-zero chance they will take whatever name you have and toss it out and pick a name themselves.
Yeah. You can't even tell you how many
Here's
name
my
changes.
story about naming games, which I thought was a sad story. But so I had a game I was doing for Ensemble Studios, and I called it Sorceress because it was an RTS game about when you were a sorceress, or there was a sorceress.
It was canceled. It was never published, right?
It was canceled because it's impossible for a game company to do more than one thing at a time. If you're a video game company. But everyone was super excited about Sorceress. I mean, hired on the company specifically to do Sorceress. And the reason they got canceled was because as they were starting to work on Age 2, they started pulling all my personnel off the Sorceress game until it was me and an artist and a programmer. So I went to the bosses and said, hey, guess what? I'm not going to do a whole AAA game with 3 guys because, I'd be wasting your money. But so instead, let's do a add-on pack to Age 1 called The Rise of Rome.
Oh, that's how Rise of Rome happened? I know you were
They took everyone off my team to do
I know you were the Rise of Rome designer, but I didn't know that it was because you were doing Sorceress.
I had to talk him into it. I said, it's ancient times. Rome ended the ancient times, so we'll do Rome. And Microsoft didn't want it. They said, oh, no, add-on packs don't sell. And I said, and I having experienced, working in role-playing games, I said, most of our sales in Call of Cthulhu were add-on packs. So we forced it down their throat and did it. And then it sold 35% as many copies of the original game, which was stellar, right? For a thing that was basically free.
Well, when
it came out to Age 2, Microsoft came to us and says, we have learned that add-on packs are big sellers. Yeah, who taught you that? Anyway, so I'm trying to do Sorceress. So we get summoned up to Redmond, where Microsoft is, and I got to have a 9-hour meeting with 15 guys about what we should name the game Sorceress.
Oh my god.
And it was 9 hours, and we talked about it all day long, broke for lunch, talked about it the rest of the day, and at the end of the day, it was named Sorceress.
Wait, the name you already wanted?
Yes. I wasn't even fighting for it. I was like, whatever, guys.
That is amazing. Wait, was Sorceress the one with the Ice Queen on the moon and the Sun King and the planet? That's such a good story. You should do a 2-player board game for that. I love that background story. It's a great little fantasy.
Did we lose MG?
I think he took he stepped out for a second. Okay, so like what Tony said earlier about...
Oh, naming games is hard, apparently.
Yeah, we've changed a lot of Petersen Games have been through name changes. Not as many of Sandy's.
Well, Sandy's are to the point.
Yeah.
Well, part of it's also is there already a game named that? Or can we get the trademark for that game?
Like Eternal Adversary went through a million name changes, which is why it doesn't have the greatest name of all. It's like we couldn't.
What was the original name for it? It was
Chaos Rift. And then Palladium sent us an email. Palladium's lawyers sent us an email saying we can't use that, and we were like, okay, fine. There's more to that story, but that's basically what happened. Tony and Jeff's games they brought to us always changed, except for Startropolis.
Startropolis, yeah, that one had the original name.
Yeah, that was the original name.
Startropolis is such a strong name, though.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it tells you everything. That's a great example of a great name. It tells you exactly what you need to know about the game in every detail.
Yeah, so Planet Apocalypse was originally just Apocalypse, which I think is a stronger name, but Planet Apocalypse still works. But that was just, there were other games that had Apocalypse in the title, and our IP attorney was very nervous, and we're like, all the other games that have Apocalypse in the title were also had other words as well. Nothing was just Apocalypse. So we're like, why not just do it, but His level of confidence that it would be problematic was like under 50%, and we still didn't use it.
He's a lawyer, so everything.
Yeah,
is,
so even a little risk is too much.
Right?
Yeah, like a little risk is too much. So we're like, come on. So it became Planet Apocalypse, which the risk dropped to like 1% or something. So. All right, so what's the next question?
I have exactly one naming story that is relevant to the game coming out. For Mary the Monster, Arthur, I need to remember what my initial thought of what the name would be.
Oh wait, well, no, I know it.
It's a game that sounds dirty but isn't, which is one of the main reasons.
Well, it used the monster's name in it, which is Fakan.
It was Wedding of the Fakan.
No. It was before that. It was
before that?
It was something Fakan.
I wanted an alliteration. I liked the word Fakan, so I was like,
I remember. It was the Fecund Fakan. Fecund Fakan.
Oof.
And I thought, that's hilarious.
All of the
alliteration, it's accurate.
When I sent it, after I talked to Zoran and I said, "Here's this game. How do you think you could help us work on it?" And I sent all my files to him, and then when he sent back his first iteration of just tinkering with ideas, the file name was like Fecund Fakan 1.0, and I was like, Fecund Fakan, what the heck?
Like, it's not a swear, it just sounds like a swear, but it's also indicative of what's happening, because they're trying to find a mate, because fecundity means, like for sheep, they're really easy to breed, so they have high fecundity, pandas have low fecundity. Like, it's very accurate, and then it's like nothing about the name was good.
I was getting a Microsoft, how much, because they were, yeah.
Yeah, so they're obviously never going to use that name.
It was nothing. Yeah. At least we didn't have to sit through a 9-hour meeting to get to the name we already had. All right, so what's the next question?
What are things you look for in new games to get you excited?
Ooh.
And related is what turns you off to a new game. So I always look at theme first, then I look to see if it kind of matches the theme. For example, there is a game I got called Fort Sumter, which is a game about the politics and events leading up to the start of the Civil War, which I'm super interested in the Civil War, so I thought this would be a great game. And a lot of people liked it, so that was more evidence it was a great game. When I played it, though, I felt it was too mathematically balanced. It didn't seem like I was really one of the fire eaters or the abolitionists or the various guys trying to stop the war. It seemed like I was playing with numbers on a map, because you each had 3 fields. There was a military field, a political field, and a popular support field. And we each had that, and it was all very even. And it was probably a good game, but it was I didn't like when I play the GMT game. Paths of Glory, I feel like I'm commanding World War I. It feels thematic. This one, I loved the theme and it seemed good, but I didn't feel like I was one of the guys at the time. Maybe I know too much of the subject.
I'm with Sandy.
Sandy is a wealth of military.
A lot of people like that game, so I'm willing to say it's just me.
Yeah. I haven't played that one. I want to play that.
I played the digital version.
I want to play that game that can be single player when you're a Navajo. That you have? I forget what it's called.
I have it.
Yeah, I want to play that.
Navajo Wars.
Yeah, Navajo Wars. I really like, Southwest Amarins and all that culture and stuff. So, mostly Comanches. There needs to be a good game about the Comanche Empire, because I would play that.
There is.
There is?
Yes.
What?
It's the same guys that did the Navajo Wars.
Oh, I'll look it up. We're going to spend time talking about that. I really love the Comanches. Okay, so...
Comancheria, Rise and Fall of the Comanche Empire, by the same guy that did the Navajo Wars.
All right, I'm not aware of it. I will look that game up. So, repeat the question again, though. It's about what puts you off to a new game?
What makes you about a new game that makes you want to get it, and what turns you off to a new game?
Tony, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of with Sandy. Like, I usually look at a theme first. I want a game that's going to suck me in with its theme and kind of give me a story to tell. Because I play lots of games, and a lot of dry Euros where you're just pushing one cube to another. That doesn't really do much for me. I want to feel like I'm commanding something, or I'm being somewhere, or I'm enjoying some kind of narrative. Those are usually my favorite. And as far as games that turn me off, it's either a theme I don't like, or nowadays really high player counts, or social deduction, or I don't know. There's a few mechanics that just I'm not really into anymore. but that's more personal preference.
I found what draws me into a game, just because maybe this is as a game designer thing, but I will play a game that a lot of people really consider to be a bad game if it's really different. Like, I will play weird things because they're weird, and sometimes I will play things because they have like a one really good joke or whatnot. So I love things like a deck builder, the deck building game, which is just the one joke where you're literally building a deck, like a soup type thing, and it's a deck builder game. Like, oh, that's hilarious.
You're just
that's
building
great.
a deck in the game? That's what you do?
Yeah, you're building a deck, like a patio. Deck builder.
Yeah, I get it.
So, and I'm like,
I thought it was like a picture-in-picture. In the game of deck, you're building a deck of cards for your deck of cards. Like, it's a deck building of deck of cards. It's a pun. Get it?
It's a pun. It's good.
Yeah.
Like, any game that has anything really weird about it, even if it's a bad game, even like win, lose, banana, like that's a fun joke. And then there are a lot of games that I get turned off from because a lot of games pitch themselves as like I don't know, like love letter, but better, or like it's like a card game like Magic the Gathering, but better. And I'm like, I don't really need those games because those games already exist. Like a game that usually like fixes a grievance doesn't have much else going for it. Like, oh, they fixed this thing. That's kind of neat. But then it's like
usually that's called house rules. If you have a problem with a game, house rule it, right? You don't need a whole new game to fix that one issue.
I want to play a multiplayer Magic the Gathering. Well, they invented EDH/Commander. Like, it's already been solved. And actually, something I really love to do is my partner and I, we actually collect out-of-print trading card games from like the 90s and 2000s. And that's
like Star Wars Cypher game.
Like Star Wars Cypher or the Neopets trading card game.
I loved growing up Mythos from Chaosium. That was a great game, I thought.
Oh, is that the one with the hex tiles?
No, it was just a
that was Hecatome, I think.
It was just a trading card game. It was just a collectible trading card game, you know.
I don't think we have that one in there about yet, but like sometimes we find really strange rules, because this is back in the Wild West when the only card game was Magic the Gathering. Everyone realized that's genius, and
Zoran, really check out Chaosium's Mythos. It was a fun game. By no means perfect, but it was very fun. I really
Chaosium Mythos was totally a storytelling game. We were literally trying to tell stories. You get your points by playing story cards that are based on Lovecraft.
And the story would be like a little 2-paragraph.
The story, you meet a monster in an area, and you have to get those cards played.
Right, so the little story card would have bolded words, which would either be types of cards or specific cards or categories of cards, and you basically had to have played all of those cards to achieve the story, which gives you points. Effectively.
That sounds really rad.
It was
almost impossible to build decks for was the problem.
Yes, and Sandy,
it was really hard to make.
Sandy himself, because it was made by Chaosium, of course. Sandy was like 3 different characters in the game. There was a Sandy Petersen card. It was just him, and then there was like Carl Stanford character, who was basically him, and
it was Mr. Shiny.
Mr. Shiny, the Proto Shoggoth, which was also him. So anyway, yeah. That was that. It was a fun game. I was in middle school when it came out, and so I was introduced to Magic the Gathering and Mythos at about the same time, and had no concept that Magic the Gathering was orders of magnitude bigger. I was like, oh, these are both fun games. Like, we just played both like crazy.
So Arthur, I had to mute myself a while ago because the dog's owner came here.
Mom?
Chris Lemons.
Chris is there? Oh, yeah.
As you are aware, they're his dogs.
Yes, so, yes. For some reason, they like Chris Lemons, and he'll never give them treats.
Like him a lot.
Yeah, but he doesn't give them treats, though.
He occasionally gives them treats. In his defense.
No, I mean, I'm not. No, what I'm saying is, like, I think they're just waiting for him to drop he never gives them anything.
That's Guy Hoyle.
They're waiting to drop the big prize, right? Or something.
A whole turkey carcass is going to fall out of him. Then they'll eat like kings.
All right, well, so what's the next question?
The next question is, what turns you off to a new game? Or are we talking enough about that, we think?
Yeah. And that's a tricky
What's the best way to find playtesters? I use my Discord channel and social media mostly, or actually because I'm probably a bad guy to answer this question because I'm well known enough that it's not a problem for me to find playtesters. So you guys who have not had a long career,
I will tell you internally that the problem for Petersen Games is not finding playtesters, but finding good playtesters. Yeah, because a million people want to playtest, but then they don't give good feedback. They're not high quality enough playtesters to help.
So here's some advice about playtesters for y'all. So here's some of the rules about playtesters. One rule is that teenagers cannot give feedback. I've met one teenager in all my life who playtested and gave useful feedback. They are now kids younger than teenagers can give good feedback. Older people can do, but something happens in the teenager's brain and they lose the power to give good feedback. I don't know what it is.
Sandy's a teenageist.
Yeah. So the other thing is that while playtesters, at least the good ones, absolutely, most of them, the vast majority, know something's wrong. Okay? And they'll say, I don't like the combat system, and they'll be correct. There's something wrong with the combat system. They will then often give advice for how to fix it, and except for a very few rare playtesters, of which I will say Chris is one of them, who's right there listening to me, their advice they give to fix it is always not going to work. So basically the combat system is bad, and you should increase the damage poison does. Then listen to the combat system is bad, but you can kind of dismiss the poison thing because they're probably wrong.
I actually heard a good analogy about that one time, which is when you have playtesters, they're the patient and you are the doctor, and then the patient can tell you what's wrong with them because they're the one that's sick and feels it, but you as the doctor are the one with the actual knowledge of how to cure them. If you start taking the patient's advice on how to cure themselves, you're doing it wrong. You're the professional here. But they can tell you what is wrong.
But they tell you what is wrong, not how to fix it. Yeah, that's a cool
thing. A story I have from like Tony, for example, actually gives good feedback, but he's another designer.
No, he doesn't.
There was another designer I had at Ensemble Studios and doing Age of Empires, and so his thing was like whatever unit he was using, if he lost the battle that we play tested, then that unit was broken. Didn't matter what kind. And he was very firm on it. He said, "I am never going to use that unit again because it's terrible." Or he would, "I'll always just use this unit because the other guy used it to beat me." So we had this unit called Grenadiers who threw grenades, and Grenadier, and so he used it, and he was using it essentially the wrong way. He was using it against targets. He was using it against its own counter unit, right?
Yeah.
And so he said, "Oh, they're worthless. I'll never use them." And I said, "No, they're good." And he said, "Nope, don't believe it. You screwed up." So me and the other main playtest guy did the bad thing where we said, where we went back and we pretended to change the Grenadiers and didn't. And the next week would say, "Hey, we fixed the Grenadiers. Try them out." And he did and said, "Wow, great job." They're perfect now. And this in fact was one of the other lead designers in the company who did this. So I was
That's awesome.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I think in board games though, because you can always see like stats and various things more easily than in a video game, it might be harder to pull that trick off. Like if
yes.
There's some time between playtesting.
They'll forget. I do know that when Sandy was playtesting years ago, playtesting Planet Apocalypse, he kept making the demons more and more hard. Like playing it, and like next time we played it, like, oh, this game's hard, and then we play it again, and like the demon's harder.
Well, to be fair, the players are getting better, so it was easier for them to win. So I thought that I needed to make them harder.
Yeah.
And then I had a range of them, so they were like.
That was eventually it was 1 crown, 2 crown, 3 crown, and then you had different, Anyway, okay, so that was a good question. And Savan and Michael, if you ever have comments.
How do you find playtesters? That's the thing, because I'm able to find playtesters easily, and it's not fair.
Usually for us, for me at least, I play test with myself first. Like I'll make a prototype and run it solo, even if it's a multiplayer game, just because your first printout usually sucks terribly, and you don't want to waste other people's time.
Yes, but it's really easy to find the playtester that is, yourself.
Right. Well, and then I moved to my gaming group, and They're good because I make them give me honest feedback, because sometimes you play with your family or friends, they'll try to spare your feelings, and that's not going to do you any favors. Jeff famously calls me his no man.
I'm blessed with friends who don't spare my feelings.
Which is what you want. Jeff calls me his no man because he'll work really hard on design, and I'll tell him it sucks, and then he's got to start over.
Instead of a yes man.
A little bit, they just don't.
Yeah.
But a good way now is to get your game on Tabletop Simulator and then reach out to like Facebook groups for gamers and tell them the theme. And there's lots of people who actually like playtesting games.
Yeah. It's not too hard to find, I don't think, really.
One way I found, and I'm not sure how big these are in the States, but there's a lot of board game cafes in Toronto. And
We haven't even been in Texas.
Yeah.
I'm in Texas. Okay, cool. Because one thing I've noticed is almost all of them have a playtesters night where designers actually encouraged to come in and playtest their games with things.
Well, that's a cool feature.
Because people are so desperate, they're always going to come in, and they're always like $20 cover, buy $20 of drinks or whatever. So they always get a good boon from that, and that's
And because they have to be old enough to drink, no teenagers.
Yes. Right.
Sandy's
I'm
special
a
rule.
teetotaler myself.
Don't
so
let
that's not an
teenagers
issue.
play test your game.
And local game stores, a lot of times will have designer days where you can get people to come in and try out designs.
Designs are pitched to Petersen Games like all the time. Dad, you know one of your granddaughters is a teenager, and another granddaughter is about to be a teenager.
I have two teenagers. She's 11. She's not going to be a teenager until she's 13.
She's basically already a teenager.
Math checks out.
She's
I
can confirm I've got a 12-year-old brother.
teenagers who can give feedback.
yeah. And Savon, is your 12-year-old brother basically a teenager?
Yeah.
Yeah. My 11-year-old daughter is basically a teenager in
12-year-olds can give food. 13-year-olds can't. I stand by my statement.
once they become actually a teenager. Okay, so what's the next question?
What's the best way to pitch your game to a publisher?
We don't answer it. No one answer this question because we already get too many pitches to Petersen Games.
No, I have
Why
no
you?
answer for it. So, first off, I have never pitched a game to an outside publisher. Okay? I have only pitched it internally to my bosses. And the way I do it inside the organization is first I gather allies, people who are my peers, or sometimes there's not really underlings in a video game company, but who would be underlings in a more stratified company, and get them on my side. Here's how I got my game expansion. The War Chiefs done, because I knew that everyone thought we should do the Asians for invading America, and I wanted to have American Indians because I thought it was a lot more fun.
It is.
I didn't want Chinese in America. I wanted Comanches, and Apaches, and Iroquois, Aztecs. So what I did first, I went to the guys who were not leads, so first I went to the other leads. My producer, the lead artist, the lead programmer, and got them on board with how cool it would be. Once they were on board, I then pitched it to their teams, and we explained how it was great, and they trusted their leads, and they said, I got them all on my board. Then I went to upper management, and part of the argument was that all the teams are on board with this. They all want to do this, and upper management was part of it. They said, well, if they all want to do it, I guess even though we want the Chinese, we'll go with what the team is enthusiastic about. So that was how I pitched it internally.
That's brilliant. I'm curious, how did it work in the days of Chaosium? For that, did you even have to pitch it, or you just write?
Let me just say that I have exactly one time. That was a game expansion, not a game. It was a full game. In my entire career before Petersen Games, once I got to do a game that the idea was mine instead of assigned to me by someone else. And that was the Hyperspace computer game.
Hyperspace.
Always they came to me and said, now you will do Pirates Diablo, or now you will do, whatever it is, right? So.
Oh yeah, what was that game called? The Pirates, that was basically Diablo, but with pirates in...
The artist wanted to call it Booty Call. which I 100% was on board with.
Yes. Booty Call that was at Ensemble Studios, right?
Sandy Peterson's Booty Call, coming soon to Petersen Games.
Just terrible. So, I remember when I was like in high school or middle school playtesting that game. That was pretty fun. So many Ensemble Studios canceled so many of your games. It was crazy. You always had to do the expansion packs to the Age series.
Most games and video companies get canceled. It's like it's how things work.
So I'll be honest. Here's how you pitch to. I mean, I don't know how you would pitch to any other company, but I know how all the games have come to us because Petersen Games has actually published quite a few non-Sandy games, basically. Even from the beginning, Theomachy, Dysenstein, Startropolis, and now Potions and Profits, Evacuate. The way it works for us is that someone approaches us, someone emails us, and we usually say our canned response is, no matter how good it looks, show us at a convention. Because what we always want is for the designer himself or herself or whoever to show it to us and them explain it to us. We don't want to read some pitch or rule book or document or anything. We want them to show us the prototype and the game, and because part of it is their enthusiasm, part of it is them explaining the game and the concept behind the game, because it's not just the gameplay, it's also the full game and the full game experience. What is this game, right? And the best way to do that is for them to show you in person. And so we're happy to let people meet with us like at conventions. Of course, in the year of the plague, 2020 and now 2021, it's been trickier, so we haven't really taken on as many new projects, right, from outsiders. But basically, although you can do it with Tabletop Simulator. But basically, if they show it to us and there's something there, then it's kind of like, okay, we'll go back and discuss it. But that's really the way to do. And so step one, show it, and step two, have an actually awesome game that should be published, right?
Because we've been an outside perspective before you even get to step one is make a sell sheet. In the shell sheet, you want something that's not going to be an entire list of rules. You want to highlight what makes your game unique, and more importantly, why the publisher wants to make your game. What it's going to do for them. Like when we created our sell sheet for Startropolis, we said, like, here's the game in 3 easy steps in the elevator pitch, and then here's why it's great for you, because it's easily expandable. It targets this large segment of the market, so they can easily look over and be like, okay, how is this game going to make me money? And then they know.
And that was like a resume. That's like a resume to the interview, because that really worked. Right. That's what got you to show me and Ian Startropolis at Gen Con years ago.
Right.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
And then you want to target publishers you think might be a good fit for your game. Like Academy Games makes games that basically all have an educational aspect, so you're not going to take your Simon Zombicide clone to them. We originally approached Petersen Games because we knew they had a lot of plastic stuff, and we figured they could handle the heavy manufacturing needs of it.
And you figured wrong.
Well, then there's that. But also, don't be afraid to cast a wide net. Just because you send your sell sheet to one publisher, you don't wait for an answer from them. Most publishers will be okay with you demoing it among other companies until someone actually signs on saying, I want this.
We don't expect you to only to pitch to us. I will say one really good way of making us super enthusiastic about your game is to demonstrate to us that it requires zero effort or editing on our part to make it work.
Oh yeah, we only accept games that are polished, like ready to publish, basically.
We've done otherwise in the past that it was not.
Because often it'll be like, here's a game that's 80% there, and we know Sandy and Lincoln can take it to that 100% level, which actually included Startropolis. Because we used to in the past do that, and now it's like it's too much effort. The game has to be 100% publishable in its current form in terms of gameplay. Obviously, adding art is what the publisher does, adding art and layout.
Actually, that's a good point. Don't waste any money or time on art. Because chances are publishers can have their own artists they want to work with. They might even change the name.
Right.
So you can have the crappiest looking components of like cut out scraps of paper or stolen web art, and that's fine.
And publishers know that it can look as ugly. It doesn't matter how ugly it looks, because you're not pitching to them anything about the art or the layout. That's going to come later, And they all make games. They know that the first iteration of a game looks like nothing. It looks like crap. It doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah. They just want to know, is it fun? Is it sellable? They can make it. They'll make the art, because a lot of times they'll have their own artists they want to use, or they'll change the name. And
you're not going to convince us by showing us cool art in your prototype, because it's like, well, it's not going to be the final art anyway, right? It doesn't matter.
I think I actually made a mistake with that when I pitched Potions and Profits. Mine had a lot of art that I commissioned.
It did have a lot of art, and it was...
We used zero of it. Like, it was all completely scrap.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I remember that art.
I don't want to criticize whoever used the art, but it was not up to our par. And we never
no, it was
it.
like sketch art.
Yeah.
It was just because the game had like the card backs really mattered, where the card fronts and the card layouts. Like it was.
Remember,
there were so many intricate parts that were functional that I just had to like someone just make it.
Well, remember the original version of Seven Vampires when I showed even the version I playtest when you did rules iterations was just like squares and writing on them. Literally no art, just words and numbers, right? It's like the backside of the card would say vampire action or kung fu action for the heroes, right? It's like...
I don't know if I still have the prototypes here. Oh yeah, here's the original prototype of Seven Vampires. It's just a bunch of cards with a lot of them like scribbled out. And it's like, oh, this one just does that. And then sometimes it didn't even have like the rules on them. It just
You'd have to reference the rules. You just know, because you're not going to write out everything. Yeah.
I had a card that just said Ancestral Recall, which makes absolutely no sense to anyone. But it's like, oh, in Magic the Gathering, Ancestral Recall was draw 3 cards.
Now, I will say, I want to draw a distinction, though, because the question before this was, how do you find playtesters? And this question is, how do you pitch to a publisher? And I would say that there's a distinction here. You do want something that looks a little bit prettier for a and first of all, it's not a downside for it to have just a little bit of sketch art when pitching it to a publisher. It's just not a requirement. But you don't want to go to a playtest, random playtesters you find at like a game cafe and show them something where it's hard for them to. You have to have some level of art just because it's. Yes, it's a playtest. They understand it's not going to have real art that you've done in real layout, but sometimes it can be hard to like play a game if it's just words on a card. When you're pitching it to a publisher, you're probably not playing a full game. You're not playtesting it with the publisher. You're pitching it to them. You might play around so they can see how the action works and the player interaction works. But so just to be clear, I mean, there's a different version of the game almost when you're pitching to a publisher and a playtester.
Let me ask a follow-up question real quick, because I love Cthulhu Mythos like nobody else. So I have tons of Cthulhu games. Another thing that I've seen that I noticed that once that reached the public access, I guess, everybody came out with a Cthulhu game, which was cool. I'm there. I've got Cthulhu games in that closet you see back there, or Cthulhu Wars right there. The other one is Martian Trilogy. I'm really in love with Edgar Rice Burroughs and the Princess of Mars and all that, but I noticed not a lot of games about that, and I'm curious why. This would be for Sandy and for all you guys.
The reason that there are not
Why would you pick one over the other?
The reason there's not a games about the Edgar Rice Burroughs thing, given the fact that I am a super big fan of Edgar Rice Burroughs, and when I was a kid, I would sometimes stay home from school and play hooky in the downstairs bathroom reading Edgar Rice Burroughs books. The reason is simply because the Burroughs estate are monsters that are almost impossible to deal with in a rational way. Now,
unless you're Disney, apparently.
What?
Unless you're Disney.
Well, apparently after 2000 they eased up a little bit, but for a long time, like when I was trying to do it in the 80s, the old ladies that were the Edgar Rice Burroughs like heirs were just like savage, and you just couldn't do it. So.
Edgar Rice Burroughs doesn't have a domain yet?
What?
I doubt it's public.
Edgar Rice Burroughs in the public domain?
I think the Disney rule keeps it safe.
Yeah,
but,
I think it should be, but I don't know.
Whenever something is meant to go public domain, Disney expands the length of copyright. So
Right.
Yeah, we'd have to look.
Disney probably wishes they bought Cthulhu before then.
I mean, the main.
I beg your pardon, Sandy. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, Michael. The practical answer though is there's an IP there. I mean, you could do off-brand Barsoom, but
Working with rights holders is never easy.
Yeah, it really is not.
I can only imagine.
Like there's Cthulhuians we've never done for Cthulhu Wars, but
Yep.
not for lack of trying.
We've tried really hard to include a
Ramsey
certain.
Campbell. Well, we're recorded, right? But Ramsey Campbell was super easy to work with.
Ramsey Campbell was super
easy to get his approval.
Ramsey Campbell was awesome to work with.
Some people are easy.
Yep. And, others are not. Yeah. So that's the main reason.
That's fair enough.
We love, Sandy and I went to see Princess of Mars, or it was stupidly called John Carter by Disney. But when Disney made the movie,
me too.
Yeah, and we were like, let's go see it. We knew it's probably not.
I wanted to see Edgar Rice Burroughs on screen. I didn't care about any of the flaws. I was like, I'm sure it's going to be a terrible movie, but I want to see Barsoom because we love that stuff. So, Savon and Michael, any other? I think we've gone through all the questions you pre sent in. Any topics, comments that would be interesting to follow up on?
No, I think everything I've wanted to know has been pretty much satisfied. I appreciate you guys' time. I know it's you guys are busy and doing stuff, but it was very interesting to see this window behind the curtain. That's a terrible analogy. This window into this realm of seeing you guys do stuff and hearing what your thought processes are from how you do things was enlightening. I thought it was really cool. I appreciate the time.
Good. Excellent.
You're most welcome. So I have a house guest I must attend to.
Say hi to Chris for me. Yes.
Take care.
Hey, Chris.
Hi. Mrs. Zariah, I'm sure.
Actually, he didn't know Zariah very well because we moved when she was 1. But I know...
She already had a personality way bigger than her.
That's true. I got to send more videos to you guys.
Who's the boss's 4-year-old?
Yes. All right. Awesome.
All right, everyone.
Sandy cut out. All right.
All right.
Guys, thanks so much.
Yeah, that was good.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah.